Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to Thrivecast. I'm Alan Wallner, the president and visionary of Conscious Branding. And with Thrivecast, our intention is to focus on you, your business, and your success. And with each episode, we discuss at a high level a topic to spark new thoughts, generate ideas, and push the boundaries of what we know is familiar. And hopefully, through all that, we may even come up with a way to frame up a new mindset to ignite your business forward and inspire action. And I'm really grateful for all of you who are here today. Our topic has had a great influence on my business, and it is something that I'm very passionate about. It's how great leaders inspire, and it's what gets you out of bed, even on your worst days. So what is it, and how do you leverage it to turn your business into something that is remarkable? And what I'm talking about here is your why, the deeper purpose, cause, or belief behind why you do what you do with your business or even with your life. And today, we're joined by three amazing people who are here to provide some wonderful insight around leading with why and how this can change your business in a big way. And I'd like to welcome Lisa Poulson. She's the principal of poseycorp. And Lisa works with innovators to become great communicators who create the change they want to see in the world. And she's also an author who writes about grief, love, and the complex beauty of female power. So welcome, Lisa. It's good to have you here today.
Thanks, Alan.
And then we also have Stephanie Courtillier. She's the founder and CEO of Integrous Women. And Stephanie is paving the way for the next generation of conscious leaders. And she's on a mission to inspire, educate, and empower women to create their purpose-driven futures. And that's a big deal. So Stephanie, it is great to have you here today.
Nice to meet you all. Thanks, Alan.
And then we have Robb Breding. He's the founder and coach at Rev Advisory Group. And Robb works with growth-minded business leaders using a people-centric approach and a philosophy focused on improving implementation and accelerating results. And Robb's love for people, business, and leadership development are at the heart of everything he does. So he's showing a little bit of passion there. So welcome, Robb. It's great to have you here.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here, Alan. Thank you.
Sure. Running a business is tough, and especially in the current situation makes it even more challenging. And, honestly, I sometimes feel what many of you may be also feeling with some of the, which are, some days it's really tough to get out of bed and to give it your 100%. Give 100% of yourself for your business. It's really tough to do that at times. So what is that little spark that keeps someone steadfastly focused and highly passionate and even energized while others may be drained? And that spark is your why. A foundational element to the life force behind your business. I know I kind of sound like I'm grandiose about it, but it's a pretty big component of what gets you going with your business. So what do I mean by why? Simon Sinek has a wonderful TED Talk and a book that speaks to starting with why. He uses the simple but powerful golden circle to explain how great companies lead their communications from why, and from why they do what they do as opposed to what they do or how they do it. So our format and time today doesn't allow me to go into depth around the golden circle and what Simon Sinek says about all that. But after this episode, if you're not familiar with it, check out Simon Sinek's TED Talk, Start With Why. We'll also provide the link to this TED Talk in the bonus materials. So either way, you'll get access to it, and it's going to be a good follow-up piece to this if you're not familiar with it. And for those of you who are, this will be a great conversation also. So it's going to tie into this, and we're going to have some fun talking about it today. So what I'm going to do, instead of normally just asking some questions, we're going to actually go a little bit deeper with each of our panelists and how they use why with their business and share more about themselves and how they leverage their why running their business. So to get us started, I'm gonna start with Stephanie. And Stephanie, can you share your why and kind of how you discovered it?
Thanks, Alan. And what a ginormous question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I must admit, I was one of those people. There's a quote that I actually want to share with everyone because I heard this maybe 5-6 years ago. I think it was Pablo Picasso, though I have seen varying ideas of who actually said it. But it's the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. Now, I'm sure many of us have heard that. The other thing I kept hearing was, oh, but when we find our purpose, it was always right in front of you the whole time. And that was the most frustrating thing to hear when you don't know what it is, right? What do you mean it's right here? Like I'm like searching every book and opportunity and place. And it was just this frustrating, hard, difficult journey to tap into what is my why. My story might be a little bit different than others in that I actually found it, and I'm an achiever. I'm a perfectionist for all the others who can totally maybe relate to being that personality type. So in my mind, it was like, I have to find it. This is like my life's soul, is just to find the why. And once I found it, I'm done, right? Big weight off my shoulders. I can live free and I've got the why. And to give some hope, hopefully, to some of you who maybe haven't necessarily pinned or can literally lay it out in front of you so clearly, is I found that this is a very emergent process. And though I did, quote unquote, find my why, it's constantly evolving. Like the only thing that's constant in life is change, right? So for me, it started with being in a state of burnout, just having enough of just everything. I mentioned I'm the perfectionist type. I've worked in many startups and with entrepreneurs. And I was the one who wore the hundreds of hats. And I always just kind of looked around and went, is this it? Is this, am I aspiring to be like this, the CEO of this firm or the entrepreneur over here? And I never really found that person or that ideal role model of someone who was really living their values. And so through that burnout process of literally, I ended up leaving the job I was in, working 80 crazy hours a week. And I sought to find myself. Now I didn't go, I wish I was brave enough to travel to the ends of the world and study under all the big mindfulness coaches. But in my case, I did something simple. I took probably 50 different personality tests. My favorite, by the way, is 16personalities.com, because you get these cute little figures that tell you essentially who you are. And so it's a Myers-Briggs based. I'm an ENFJ if you're curious, definitely extroverted. And I just took all these tests. I actually ended up also creating a survey. I'm pretty much giving the journey of how I somewhat pinpointed it, right? I created a survey that I sent out, and this was probably the best thing I did. And I just asked people around me, what do you think my why is? Or what is the story where you feel that I was living my best life? What's a memory you have of me? And that was really eye-opening for me because I thought I maybe knew, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, but to hear it from others and to almost hear the limitations too. What do I not know about myself that you would like to share? What I ended up doing is kind of literally mapping out all the different personality tests, this feedback that I had received. And I started asking myself really powerful questions like, who am I at the core? And just to journaling. Where do I belong? What is the legacy I want to leave in the world? What causes do I love? And I ended up putting it together. And once again, perfectionist. I wanted to create this just intense, amazing sentence. So my sentence ended up being, I use my passion and love to inspire and empower heart-centered leaders to take action towards their dreams. And I literally forced myself to memorize this. Now, this is not the way you should go out and find your why, because it's constantly emerging. I couldn't repeat it back. I wasn't something that I definitely got excited when I read it, but I couldn't memorize that. And I was like literally wordsmithing for hours on end to get the perfect sentence. And it wasn't until maybe COVID hit, and I know in some of the future questions, we're going to talk through some of this, that I was like, I got to simplify. I got to have more fun. I can't be constantly on like this because that's not a powerful why. So my new why today is this. I love this concept of be, do, have. So I'm like, I'm going to be inspired and I'm going to use that. My why is be love, do good, and have fun. And if I can keep it that simple in everything I do, then I've made it. I'm having a good life. So though I do love my very fancy statements, and I still look to it from here on and there, I'm still emerging. And I think to keep it so simple, because love is such a big word. If I'm in love and not fear, that's a win for the day. If I'm doing good to any capacity, amazing. And if I can't have fun while doing it, well, what's the point of living, right? If I'm always going to be in this serious state. So I did all these different things to get to where I am, but by all means, I'm still, that might be a completely different thing a year from now. Who knows? That's somewhat the journey that I ended up taking to get to it.
Yeah, I also like how you say it comes from your core, from your values, from your essence, basically. So as long as it's always kind of a derivative of that, you're sitting good. So it's okay to morph a little bit. So Lisa, I'd like to hear a little bit more about kind of, your why and how you discovered it.
Well, so just thinking about, I left my day job when I was 50. And I just thought, oh, I'll just freelance and I'll pick up some work and it'll be fine. And it was a total disaster. And so after a year of flopping around, completely failing and not knowing what I was doing, I went to coaching school. And then after the year after that, I was trying to figure out, well, do I want to be a coach? And if so, what kind of a coach? And who do I want to serve? And I had spent, 25 years at that point in public relations, almost exclusively in the tech industry. And I didn't know how that was or wasn't relevant to coaching. But what I did is I sat down and made a list of every client I'd ever had across my whole career that I liked. And then I started to list, well, why did I like those clients? Why did I like that work? And so just with each one, I wrote down all the characteristics that I liked. And then I just looked for commonalities. So basically I reverse engineered it. I just looked back at the career that had already happened and figured out, okay, what were the things that worked for me? And so what I found was the people that I love working with the most are the people that have really fascinating ideas, but they didn't necessarily have the skills to scale up to communicate those ideas to the world. So my favorite client of all time is a doctor at UCSF who was one of the first people 12 years ago to realize that there was a need for trauma-informed primary care, which is now a ubiquitous buzzword. But 12 years ago, when he was trying to create it, it didn't exist. And he's one of the first people who started talking about it. And I've been working with him this whole time on that concept. And what it made me realize is that I want to help people with great ideas become great communicators, because then they can change the world. So I'm not going to change the world. I'm going to help other people change the world. And so it's an indirect relationship to action on earth. And so my why is that I help innovators become great communicators, because it's great communicators who can create the change they want to see in the world. You can't,
I like that.
You can't build a movement if you don't know how to connect with and talk to people. So that's how I got there. And it was just literally a process of writing down the attributes of every single client that I'd worked with and identifying the commonalities of the clients that I loved.
See, Stephanie, it's right. It was right under Lisa's nose that whole time.
Only after the fact that you figure it out, but to be told that up front is not fun.
No, it doesn't help at all, does it? Everything you always need is right under here. So Rob, I'd like to hear your perspective on this.
All right, well, great. Yeah, and those are, I'm thinking you two ladies have taken way more intentional thought through some of this why discovery than I have probably. But, when I reflected on this, and certainly have read Simon's book and seen that TED Talk, Alan, first of all, I believe that every one of us, and this is, kind of maybe speaking to the audience a little bit, is searching for purpose and meaning in life, right? I mean, it's probably the biggest thing that that does give us energy, Alan, to your point. And like most people listening, for me, my why has always been, being added to and being fine-tuned. And as I, add experience and education and learn more about myself, it evolves, just like Stephanie was saying. And Lisa, you and I are similar boat. I sold my business when I was 48. Mm-hmm. And then I found myself looking in the mirror, wondering what I would do with myself now going forward. And it's funny how God has a way of working these things out for us. At the same time, at the beginning of that next year, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, which turned into heart failure. And I spent 2 years caretaking for the woman that I've loved and been married to for 33 years. And that was a kind of a real perspective changer and a real eye opener. And that's when I decided that I wanted to get into this business of helping others and working with people and helping them to achieve excellence and find this very thing, because this is what drives engagement and what drives our effectiveness, is our ability to get connected to our why. And so I'm going to add this little thing here. So I think there's kind of 3 clues to your why. And I think we're going to talk about this quite a bit, but one is that, you know, we all have our God-given talents and our natural abilities. And I think there's a clue there to what our why is. You know, what are we good at? What do we naturally love doing? Like Stephanie, I love those behavioral things, and I use a lot of behavioral tools in my practice, and knowing yourself is kind of where it starts. The second clue, I think, is our life experience and our personal journey. Being a certified assessment giver, you learn that, you know, there's not very many things that change these kind of fixed talents and abilities that we have. But a major trauma like I went through with my wife, or my wife went through, or maybe the loss of a child or a divorce, or some of these major incidents that happen in our life can really impact us at the core, and it can change our why. It can kind of change our values and what we believe. And so that's happened to me a few times. And then the third factor is really the truth that we discover. And that's both through education, through mentors, and through modeling, and through the experiences of others. So I've never really been very good at that one. I always have to fall on my face in the mud myself to have an experience, but certainly I think that does inform our why. And so my why, and I had to write it down because I wanted to make sure I articulated it properly, but I think it's just really connecting, guiding, and inspiring those people that God places in my path to understand and develop and fully engage the talents that they have. And then the final piece is so that they can accomplish what matters to them, you know. So helping them just understand, you know, what they, you know, who they are, what they have to offer, and then developing those skills around that and engaging themselves in such a way that they can accomplish the things that matter most to them. So that's my why.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think you're onto something when you kind of hit maybe it's more of a looking at yourself internally because of something tragic that's happened, or a really low point in your life, or some big challenge that's really difficult to overcome, tends to be what starts that process of evaluating your why. I had a similar thing when our middle child, Alex, came to me and told me that she was transgender. And I had to deal with a lot of my own personal emotions around that, and to work to figure out what that meant for myself and my family. And, you know, the journey through all of that helped me kind of understand a different way of looking at the world, and a different way of seeing people for who they truly are and accepting them. And as a result, you know, realize that all kind of fits into branding, because it's not about physical attributes. It's about the inner being of a person and the presence they bring to their business. And then being more aware of your presence and why you do what you do. And that led me to kind of come up with a whole driving why behind why I do what I do. And that's, you know, every business has an inherent ability to be remarkable and to have a profound impact on the world, to make it a better place. It just needs to be unleashed. So that's kind of what we do now we kind of turn that into our whole way of doing business. And I like how there is a common thread behind all these. There was definitely a lot of thought, a lot of kind of twisting and turning internally, trying to figure this all out. And again, for all of us, it seems like it was kind of right under our noses, which I find very interesting. So now that we've heard kind of our whys, I'd like to kind of discuss how you applied it to your business and how it has made a difference in your business as a result of that. And so with this question, I'm going to start off with Lisa.
Okay. So there's this Dilbert cartoon where it's like company with a strategy and or company without a strategy and company with a strategy, and someone picks up the phone, he says, no, we don't do that, and he hangs it up. So what strategy gives you, I didn't explain that very well, strategy gives you focus. So for me, a huge part of this was just understanding what I don't want to do. I was, when I got out of coaching school, I was sitting down with a friend, and, there are a lot of people who have PhDs in organizational behavior from Wharton, or they were CEOs and they're executive coaches. And I don't like management just per se is not of great interest to me. And, I was talking to a friend about what kind of a coaching career I wanted to have. And he said, well, I haven't once heard you say that you want to be asking CEOs if they did their yoga. And I was like, you're right. I don't give a bleep if a CEO did his yoga. I care about whether he can communicate or she can communicate to her team. And so the why really gave me focus. So first of all, it's all about how people communicate. It's not about general management or any of those other aspects of business. The second thing is I am not interested, and I have no mass marketing program at all, because I'm not interested in just helping everyone become a better communicator. I want to work in depth with someone who is doing something powerful and someone who's kind of brilliant. And so I only take clients through word of mouth. And so so my marketing is tailored because it's very clear about how and then about what I need to do to remind the people that I already know that I exist. And then the third thing is understanding what services to offer. So it's focusing on what I do. It's how the marketing is different. And then within the group of people that I'm targeting, so I understand exactly who my clients are, who my prospective clients are, and what their attributes are and what their problems are. And then it's like, well, what specific exact services do they need? So for example, when COVID happened, 90% of my gigs were canceled in 3 days, because almost all of my clients are hiring me to help them get ready for their big keynote speeches that they were giving at their user conferences or at industry conferences. Or I was prepping them to go on media tours where they would be going to New York and or New Jersey and being on CNBC or whatever. And so switching, so it was immediately apparent that they would still have to keep their businesses going and they would still have to reach people, because I understand why they need to communicate. And so pivoting, I've got tech CEOs who are delivering their big user conference keynotes from their living rooms on their laptops, just like we're sitting here now. And so pivoting so that I could coach them to successfully do that. And it's comforting in some ways to stand in front of a 60-foot plasma screen and have the big demo behind you, so it's not really about you. But now it's like people are looking at your face. And for a lot of these people, that was in some ways scarier than being on a big stage. And so helping them be comfortable with that, because I know my why, I know who my audience is. And because I know who my audience is, I know what they need. And I can create services for them specifically.
What I like about that is through the why, it really helps you keep your business very focused. And through times that come along the way, you can kind of fall back on your why to help realign to keep you heading. It's almost like a compass and a guide star. Even though it goes a little off track, you can get back on track.
And it saves wasted effort.
Yeah, it lets you know where you need to spend your time researching.
Yeah, exactly.
Robb, I'd like to hear your perspective on this one.
Yeah. Well, when I looked at this question, I took a little bit different approach. What I was thinking is there's probably a lot of different people listening, and I do think it's true that, hopefully this is true, that the older that we get or the more we experience life, the clearer, right? this question becomes, I don't know if that's true. Hopefully it doesn't become more fuzzy. So what I was thinking was, like, I thought back to my very first iteration of into business, and because this is a kind of a business topic here that we're we're discussing in the context of business or context of success. The first thing was I had this troubled youth, and so when I came out of high school, I went to college to study youth ministry because I wanted to help the kids like I had that trouble. And so my why, the driver that was kind of pushing me then, and I know now is a driver of mine, is my altruistic driver. When it comes to people, I'm very altruistic. I want to help. And so that's what was driving me then. And then I started working at Sears, okay? And Sears was this beautiful, great big company back in the 80s and 90s when I worked there. And all of a sudden my commanding driver kicked in, right? I wanted to be the CEO of Sears and climb the corporate ladder. And so I switched gears and went from youth pastor to psychology to wanting to be an executive at Sears, Roebuck and Company. And then in 1999, my brother called me up and from California and told me about his wireless phone company and how he had finally made $1, you know, and so all of a sudden the next, you know, my resourceful driver kicked in, and this idea that, hey, nobody's doing that in Minnesota. Let's start a wireless phone company. And so now all of a sudden that was kind of what it was energizing me and driving me. And then that went on for 14 years, and what a great opportunity for me to kind of lean into all those different things, leading people and all of the different ways that that's impacted it. And then I fast forward to now, in probably what I think is the most fine-tuned iteration of how my why is influencing my work, is that I've really focused in on, you know, what I said, and that is, helping people to understand and guiding them and inspiring them towards this thing. So it's kind of this exponential, impact, hopefully, rather than just my sphere of influence, that now I'm helping these other people that all have spheres of their own. And so I think that's kind of how it's evolved for me. And I kind of wanted to go through that iteration so you can kind of see, because I think it doesn't have to always be clear, and there's different parts of our why that are influencing us at different times. And I think that's okay. As long as we're in it some way, we have energy, it gives us energy.
Yeah, I would agree. And that becomes that life force behind what we're doing. Yeah. And it's just like you have your why. And if you put too heavy of a stake in the ground, you're not going with the flow of life. So yeah. I like how you point out the different aspects of your why that start kind of bubbling up as different experiences start flowing in front of you.
We all have to do a bunch of stuff we don't like doing. Okay. And so whenever we can lean into that, energy there that we get from our why, it can really help us to push through what we know we need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I like that. Well, Stephanie, I'm kind of anxious to hear your side of this one.
And I might echo some thoughts too from Lisa and Rob. In my case, I'm going to use the words Lisa used, the reverse engineering. For me, business almost came last. So the way I actually built Integrous Woman was when I was going through this process of finding my why, really finding myself. I identified my strengths, so it's kind of more personal. I'm very altruistic, similar to Rob, it sounds like hearts here. And so I was very clear on wanting to find a cause. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur though. So I loved every cause you can think of. So it's like, okay, let's just start testing. Let's going out and volunteer. Let's serve on different boards of nonprofits and get a feel for what's the cause that's really resonating with my heart. So once I got crystal clear on maybe my top 3 strengths that I really wanted to leverage and grow, versus I think what 99% of us do is we really focus on weaknesses and go, oh my gosh, I need to make myself better here. But then when we do that, we just become average. So I really took those 3 strengths and I'm like, I want to be great and remarkable, to use Alan's word, to come up into this with my strengths. I played around with different causes, and then I reverse engineered with what's a business model that I can build that will allow me to leverage my strengths and influence and impact the cause. And so what I found, and I think Rob kind of mentioned this, it's when we are in that state of energy and flow, there's a lot of great books on flow. I was in this space of creativity and passion and curiosity for the world. A lot of doors started opening. So though I hadn't necessarily nailed in on and honed in on that perfect sentence or that why, I was living my passions. I was going through and finding myself through this. And those doors that opened were people that I ended up meeting. They were opportunities that just presented themselves. One of the doors was learning about the business model of social enterprise. And I had never heard of that. I went to college, I studied marketing, I've done business, I've been in nonprofit, but no one had ever told me there's a perfect world of the best of the business world and the best of the nonprofit world literally merged together. I did a ton of research, ended up founding Integrous Women 3.5 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, not even 3 years yet. That's event, my goal is to be a B corporation, which is this model of social enterprise. So I reverse engineered it to really bring all those best elements into a business model. And so through Integrous Women, another one of those opportunities that came was, I love getting coffees pre-COVID, of course. I miss my coffee dates with people, but the ability to sit down, and I got introduced with a woman who was sharing about this cause in Guatemala. Now, I was blessed enough. My mom's a life coach and a spiritual coach. She would drag me around the world. We've done so many impact trips. And so I felt like I had seen and experienced some really great causes. But to hear these stories of these young girls that were orphans, that had experienced all different types of abuse, and to think, oh my gosh, today this is still happening. And I literally remember walking away from this conversation, looking to my left and my right, going, someone needs to do something about this. And recognizing when no one raises their hand, why can't that be me? So to take that moment, that experience, I ended up blending into the cause of Integrous Women. So I was supporting entrepreneurs, and I love how Lisa said, finding even the clients that maybe we've worked with in the past, or who do you want to be working with? If you don't love the people you work for and with, you're going to have a really hard time continuing through that business. So it was kind of pulling all these opportunities, just started opening. I had no idea. Now I am someone who is a control freak. To not know what step 2, 3, 4 looks like is scary. But to just be brave enough to get out of my comfort zone and kind of talk like I knew what I was, pretending like I knew what I was saying, being like, yeah, I'm going to start this thing. It's going to be called Integrous Women. It's a movement for female entrepreneurs. Things just started happening. And so fast forward the 3 years, we've got a sustainable impact model. We are a social enterprise functioning, and everything I'm doing is incorporating my why and my values. And we'll talk a little bit later even just about the culture and how we can co-create some of these systems almost within our organizations, but to reverse engineer it in that way. So starting with strengths to summarize and thinking about the impact you want to make in this world. Maybe it's not a cause, maybe it is. But how do you build the model that allows you to live both of those? So personal, professional, and philanthropy. Those are my 3 Ps that we always do and talk about in Integrous Women. And that's how I've been able to bring it all home, for me at least.
I like that. Just even just going out there and kind of claiming something and having that as your why, and allowing that to help you navigate. But just even the person, professional, and philanthropy, that's a great guide for someone. Those are 3 very important components to your life and how you can help other people. So if you can kind of blend that into your why, that would be fantastic. I know when I was going through a lot of my figuring out with my why, I didn't quite know how to leverage it into the business. I was like, okay, well, I know I want to help people. I know there's something about, it's what's on the inside, not on the outside. It's how you see people, and it's the energy around the individual. And so that's what really got me started at dissecting what branding is, and actually looking at our whole process of the way we branded a company. And a lot of people think of their brand as their logo. But in reality, it's the perception that people have of you based on how you make them feel through an experience you've created for them. So once you start dissecting everything and really looking at your inside and seeing other people in a new way, you start thinking about brand and experiences in your business and what you're doing, the services you offer, all of that. You start just turning it all upside down from the typical way of going about building and thinking of a business and your brand. And that's kind of what my why did, it totally shifted how I look at a business and how we work with our clients. We kind of created our own way of doing it. We don't build it around physicalities anymore. It's what's the why, and use that as the driver. So we help people find that. Like you've all been saying, it's a very difficult thing to do. And it is a process to go through, but once you get there, it has a huge impact on your business. And so the other question that kind of follows up with that, we've been talking about finding your why. What is your why? How have you leveraged it with your business? Was there ever a time when you were running your business that you just didn't have a why, or you lost it? How were things in your life, personally, business wise, and even philanthropy wise? How did not having a why, if you were in that situation, how did that impact your life? And with that, I'll start with Robb.
Wow. Well, yeah, this is really good question for me, because boy, when I look back at what I've done, it's not always been for the best of reasons. Alan, okay, you know what I mean? Like as much as we know each other, I think I'm a pretty good guy, but boy, sometimes our motives, where there's a shadow side to some of these drivers we have inside of us, right? And so there was times, obviously, with whether that was in school or whether that was at Sears when I was fighting with others to climb the corporate ladder, or when that was at Shock City, when at the wireless phone company, when we were trying to grow and capture market share and make money, right? Some things that don't always sound as altruistic as, the evil business idea, right? And so I think that oftentimes does sidetrack us. And then I would also say, on a less intentional basis, maybe it's a good time to pause too and just say, we have such a blessing to live here in a country where we can have this conversation. You're right. We're so fortunate to be able to not that you can have this conversation in a less privileged society, but what a blessing we do have to be able to find that purpose and blessing and really get to the pinnacle of our effectiveness as people. And I don't think we should take that responsibility lightly. That's a responsibility we have as Americans, as a first worlders, right? As the whatever you want to call us, that we do something with that. But there is this pull to kind of get off the rails. And I listed a few things that are pitfalls when I I do some coaching. It's part of developing ourselves. A lot of times it's what we need to stop doing. So some pitfalls for me have been is my need to win. Okay. I can't tell you how many times that's got me in trouble. I got to win this thing. It wasn't in I got away from my value system or from my why. My need to be right. Okay, which is also kind of rooted in my need to win. Okay, because I'm a high. Who was the type A, Stephanie? Okay, man, I am telling you, I'm a high D. Okay, it's like but I'm a high yellow too. So I'm you don't have to guess what I'm thinking. And then so when I'm right, when I think I'm right, of course I tell you. And then another one I wrote down was clinging to the past. Sometimes we're too much holding on that we can't let go of that to go to the next thing. And then I've already talked about money. So those are some ways that I think, your why can get muddled.
Yeah.
If that was the question, Alan.
Yeah, no, you answered it just right. Okay. Then it's always working to get back to that why. But there are things that happen in life that can kind of pull you away from that. But that's always a good grounding point to come back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Stephanie, I'd like to hear how you can answer this one.
A couple of things come to mind for me. A big one was this awareness, and I love some of the elements Robb mentioned, even just of those pitfalls, because I've definitely fallen through. I think many of us have. I mean, we're humans after all, we're not perfect. It's these two pathways almost. And growing up, at least for myself, I was always taught to succeed, but I was striving so I was on this journey to strive for success in any way, shape, or form that looked like. And what I quickly learned in my early mid-20s, when I was starting to hit that burnout from having succeeded to everyone else's perspectives was I made this shift to striving for significance instead. And there's this, we have to be careful because success, I still want to be successful, but it's almost this transition from getting out of our heads and working more from our hearts. And they say this is the longest journey that we're ever going to have to make in our lifetime, is from your head to your heart. But that was such a pivotal moment. And when I really understood that in a very gut level versus comprehending it up here, we want to be successful, but what would it look like if instead of always striving for, the ranking and achieving in that way, that I was striving for something that was a legacy built or impact based or values based, right? Going once again from getting out of my head into my heart. And I've run into those pitfalls. So things like, I mentioned I'm a controller to some capacity. So ego gets in my way all the time. I'm a Leo. I'm a very quiet, humble Leo, I must say, but I'm a Leo. And so I've got those characteristics inside of me where it's fun to be the spotlight. And it's interesting because just my journey, I was a shy, quiet, introverted kid. And I've learned to almost grab, which no one would, I know I'm in Toastmasters and they make fun of me all the time. Like, you're not shy and quiet, I can't see it. I'm like, trust me, I am. Call my mom, I swear. But for me to come back to that heart space is having, and I think someone in the chat was asking this, so is it mindfulness, is it journaling? It's all and it's nothing at the same time. It's kind of pick one and pick the one that works for you. But as far as my business goes, similar to Robb, I've got this entrepreneur bug. I joke that I'm the perfect blend of my parents. My mom, I mentioned, is a spiritual life coach. My dad is a Middle Eastern workaholic businessman. So I've got like the boots to the ground, work your butt off, right? If you want to ever be known for anything, everything is hard. Everything has to come after hours of work. And then I've got this mom that's like, plan tight, hang loose, like just a hippie. And I've got these two very conflicting people that have made who I am today. So I've had to learn to embrace both elements and bring the best forward. So to kind of summarize, it's are you on this path for success? And if so, awesome. But how can you also live from your heart in everything you do? And we are only human. So it's not to feel guilty or shameful when you are acting out of ego. It's just to be more aware of those moments and to almost set yourself up in a way. So are you meditating every day? Because if I'm not having a 5 or 10 minute meditation or even a breathing or a grounding break, I am automatically in my type A, get stuff done mode. I'm in the do versus be. And this through COVID was a big one for me, to step out of do and step into be. And that's so much easier said than done. But when we are in that element of be, all the things are attracted to you. And that's something for a workaholic. And just in our society, how we're very individualistic, we're very achiever-based, we're very success-oriented. We have to remind ourselves of those elements and to bring that. So to answer the direct question, no, I was never operating for my why. I was constantly in this other state, and it's a constant reminder. But Integrous Woman, luckily, blessedly, I built it completely from why. And I've done it in a way that it's constantly reminding me of my why. So I'm almost being held accountable by our community to be that leader, to step into that higher self. And I'm going to pause
Nice.
there.
I like that. Yeah. It's, instead of going for success versus significance, and then if you can build your business model around the significance, that is pretty powerful. I like that. So Lisa,
Well,
I'd like to hear your perspective.
Here's the thing. I'd like to express the capitalist point of view, which is, I don't think that your why is opposed to being successful. So
Right.
in 2000, if you compare where I was in 2013, when I had no idea what my why was going to be, and where I was in 2019 before COVID, my business was 20 times more profitable, or 20 times top line revenue. So me having a why helped me have a business that works. And I'm not a nonprofit. I work for tech companies. They have a lot of money and I want them to pay me. And part of, for me and my business, my services are not inexpensive and it helps people understand the commitment. which is if you're going to work for me, don't take it seriously and expend energy on it. So I'm in favor. I'm in favor of making a lovely living from a place of a wonderful why. And I just don't want us to feel like we're diverging from commerce toward a why, and that we can't make a living at doing it, because I don't have anyone else to pay my rent but me, so I got to pay my rent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
no,
my point was trying to make was that when I'm focused in that area, it's when I'm most effective and when I do generate the most revenue, Lisa. I mean, that was at Shock City, that was at, my individual sole proprietorship that I have now. So that's a really good point to make.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, all right. So now what about someone who, they're just not passionate about their business anymore, and maybe they've never had a why to drive their business? What are some things that you might want to recommend they do to help discover or rediscover their why? I think we've kind of weaved it into our stories here a little bit, but it'd be interesting to hear if we can just quickly kind of roll it up into a nugget. And with that, I'll start with Stephanie on this one.
So some of the things that, and actually I feel like maybe many of us, and Lisa kind of mentioned this, even COVID hit, right? And I think it just put such a dent in a lot of everyone's personal lives and professional lives. And so for me, having gone through that experience, even though I kind of joke that, IW is built out of my why and my passions. It's like it's my essence, it's my being. And yet, and Robb alluded to this, we all have to do stuff we don't like to do, right? So we definitely, there's the paperwork, there's the really annoying back-end admin work that I have to do, though I finally found a VA, yay. They exist, there's people who can help you with this stuff. But we still have to do that as business owners. And more recently, through COVID specifically, and I also happen to have gotten pregnant during COVID. I'm 20 weeks right now. And I think just the emotional, thank you, but the emotions of all of that was overwhelming. And I kind of took a step back, and it was like, am I really doing what I want to be doing with my life? I started asking myself questions like, am I living the impact? Almost going back to the basics, to when I was first in that burnout phase of, am I living this life with a purpose? Am I actually living through my why? And so in that state of being, once again, I think I had to step out of the doing to step back into the being. And it's, for me personally, it's every time I'm stuck in do that I'm no longer in flow. Things get hard, things are complicated, things are overwhelming. And to keep it super simple, it's fear or love. We're either living in fear in any way, shape, or form, and all those emotions that are scary and hard, that means you're literally facing fear. So I had to go back to face love and going, what is it about IW that I love? It's the people, it's the community. So for me to get back into my flow, to start living out the why again, meant being more intentional, being more strategic with where I was focusing my efforts. So I joke about bringing a VA so that the VA can take on the stuff I don't like to do. Why? Because I need to step into my unique brilliance. We all have one of those. It's those strengths. And so in my case, it was the ability to take a step back, to take strategic action from COVID, not just react, but to be proactive through that process and hone in on the basics, the core, the values of what made Integrous Woman, and to use that. And so now an example is I put together a giving community project. We're gonna make art kits to support 2 nonprofits in Orange County. That's fun for me. That makes me feel alive. So I think for anyone who's listening, are you stuck in do? Do you have the ability, even for 5 minutes, to step back, reconnect with your purpose, and now be intentional in bringing elements of what you love into the day-to-day? But to be intentional and to take action towards that, I think is really, really important.
All right, cool. Thank you for that, Lisa.
Well, I've been thinking about this. I think it's partly just taking a step back and taking a 30,000 foot view. I was so devastated by Chad Mcbosen's death, and I've been reading a lot about him and about how he was suffering from colon cancer for 4 years while he was making these magnificent movies. And I was reading Ryan Coogler's tribute to him yesterday, who directed him in Black Panther, and he was talking about how Chadwick was so focused on just this long-term why of wanting to represent this beautiful, hopeful model for generations of kids. And so he was a person, he knew he was going to die. So he was a person who was really focused on what's the highest level, the most important impact I can have, and doing it right now in the moment. So sometimes I think stepping out of how do I make my numbers this month or this quarter and into what do I want to look back on having accomplished in 25 years? And just like setting aside for half a day all the stuff that's right in front of you, I think that can make a difference. And also, for me, there have been a couple times, Robb's mentioned God. I guess it's okay to talk about God on this thing. So I, more than once, so I live in San Francisco. I live in an apartment building. More than once, I've gone up on the roof of my apartment building and just stared up at the sky, and I'm like, God, I'm lost. I'm confused. I have a daily prayer practice every morning and every night, but sometimes it's like I have to have a really serious conversation about how I'm freaking out and I can't handle it, and I don't know what to do, and I really, really, really need help right now. And sometimes that's what I have to do, or calling friends, or so they're going it alone versus asking for support. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm so stubborn and I always think I know what I should do, so it's hard for me to step back and ask for help. So part of it is like stepping back to that 30,000 foot view, which, and Chadwick Boseman is my role model for that. And part of it is when I'm really lost, I have to step back and really ask for help. And so I go up on the roof because I feel like I can look up in the sky, and I'm like looking up at God's house, and I can say, hey, I really need some help. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good. Robb, I'd like to hear your perspective on this, because I think we all have some similar views as to kind of digging deep, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm just going to echo, I think, maybe what Stephanie and Lisa have been saying, and that is, when you get away from your why, what you're saying is taking that time and having a regular practice of self kind of reflection and self work will help you to stay there, I think. I jokingly, Alan, I think in your original thing, when you sent us, I was going to be first on this one. I was just going to tell them to hire me to help them. But I'll put 3 bullet points on it. One would be, take the time and get to know yourself well. Okay, and that includes your why. And then, to Stephanie's point, be yourself as often and as often as you possibly can. And then, to Lisa's point, surround yourself with good people that have your best interest at heart, that love you unconditionally, and that can help to lift you up and give you perspective when you need it. If you put those 3 things in place in your life, it becomes a lot easier to stay on the rails. And so that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I would agree. Oftentimes we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day and needing to achieve and to just always be on the mark and drinking tons of coffee so you can have that energy. But it really does boil down to, taking the time for self-care, to step back and slow down, and to maybe observe for a while, to even, do that self-work, and to really get to know yourself. And I really liked, authenticity and being true to yourself. I think you guys are right on with that. And, I can't think of a greater experience if you're a business owner, instead of just going on goals all the time and just taking a moment to become more familiar with you and your why you're doing what you're doing. And once you open the doors there, I think the business starts growing and progressing and evolving in a much healthier way, because like attracts like. So if you're in a more peaceful state of being and, you know, being true to yourself, well, who are you going to attract? You're going to attract people who are in a similar way. And energetically, people are going to like being around you. So you're going to start attracting really nice people who you can share this with and even learn from. So I think it just escalates. And there's a whole another component which we're going to do in a later episode called conscious capitalism. And that's about running your business from your why and you know, people, philanthropy, planet. So how do we get all that to work together in a way that can be a successful business? And so if people are interested in this topic and how do you go even further with it, that'll be a good topic for everyone to tap into. We did kind of address everyone's attendees' questions in the way we were answering our questions, hopefully. If not, please let us know. You can email us at info@consciousbranding.com. And I would also like to thank everyone for attending this episode today. I think it was a great conversation, great insights, a lot of things that people can put to use, and you know, things will only get better if you start applying these things. So I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation. And also, if you can think of any additional topics you'd like us to cover in the future, I'm starting to develop the next fourth quarter and first quarter of next year episodes. So drop me a line at info@consciousbranding.com. I'd like to incorporate some of your ideas with what I'm developing here. And, you know, I just look forward to seeing you back. And remember, you create your world. So believe in your vision, drive it with purpose, and above all, take action. So until next time, be remarkable. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thanks, Alan.
All right,
Alan.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.